Hi, everyone. So, here on Saturday, March 14th, I just did a little research, and at least there's one report that the initial case of the novel coronavirus was first reported in Wuhan, China, back in November 17th. And if that's true, that would make this day 119 of the coronavirus outbreak. And as I'm sure most of you know, at this point, it's been declared a global pandemic as of Wednesday, March 11th. So, so this is day 4 in the global pandemic, and on Friday, the U.S. president declared a U.S. national emergency regarding the coronavirus outbreak or pandemic. So now day 2 in this national emergency here in the U.S. But this is a global situation, so I think the important number here is that we are in day 4 of what has now been declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization. And fortunately, from everything I'm seeing, and of course I'm tending to see through my own networks, as we all do, but it appears that many companies in the private sector, many nonprofit organizations, and individuals here in the U.S. are voluntarily limiting travel or stopping travel altogether, canceling events, public events, limiting public contact, and practicing social distancing. Now, I can't say how widespread it is, but I have been impressed that it feels like many companies in the corporate sector and many individuals privately and many of the nonprofit organizations I'm connected to are doing so voluntarily. And hopefully this can, as I'm sure you all have read about, flatten the curve of how the pandemic will spike in this country, as it already has in many countries. And it appears that really the key factors are really just limiting public movement and public contact, self-quarantine when any of us feel that we may have had contact with the virus or if we actually are suffering symptoms, and then testing, which is hopefully finally going to start coming online in significant numbers here in the U.S. So I wanted to offer just some practices that might help us deal with the fear and anxiety that I'm sure we're all experiencing for ourselves, for people in some of the really terribly affected countries in Europe right now. It does appear anyway that in China, where this originated, they have it under control, which is really good news. And but it appears in Europe it's really relatively out of control at the moment. I think different countries are putting different measures in place, but certainly Italy has been extremely hard hit, and as we know, the country's basically been shut down. And so there's just terrible anxiety and fear around this. And here in the U.S., I think many feel that we're kind of in this calm before the storm. It is starting to grow, and there are many more cases, but we haven't hit that huge ramp up yet. But that could be happening right now as I speak. So hopefully not. But almost everyone says that it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I do believe that if we all act prudently and with concern and compassion, not only for ourselves but for everyone else, and especially for the elderly in our society, and especially for the most vulnerable in our society, the healthcare workers and the first responders. Hopefully, we all have them in our prayers, and then the elderly and people who find themselves homeless, refugees, and in particularly of great concern to me because of my involvement with the criminal justice system for so many years. All my fellow human beings, fellow citizens who are incarcerated at the moment, both adults and youth who are incarcerated, are in an incredibly vulnerable situation. And many prisons are starting to stop public visiting, which makes sense so that they don't bring the virus into the prisons. But then it further isolates the prisoners, and of course they don't have contact with their family members. But nonetheless, I think it's a necessary step for now. And many of us who are involved in bringing programs into prisons, we won't be bringing those programs in. So we're trying to figure out if there's any way that we can offer things remotely. This would have been impossible in prisons not so many years ago, but there are prisons now starting to allow some email, some video contact with the outside world, and so there may be possibilities that we can make some offerings that can go into the prisons during this time. At any rate, there are many, many, many of our fellow citizens in this country, in the U.S., where I live, and our fellow citizens all around the world who are in very vulnerable situations. And so really hopefully keeping all of us and all of them in our hearts and prayers, and then acting prudently to do what we can to flatten out that curve, at least where we live, and by limiting travel and so forth. I was actually supposed to be starting to deliver a very intensive training that I deliver twice a year called The Event. I was going to be at a retreat center in upstate New York, well, not so upstate, about an hour north of New York City, called Stony Point, and wonderful place, and we do it there twice a year, and we had to cancel that a few days ago. And I'm going to be leading a retreat that's the culminating retreat training for our Engaged Mindfulness Institute year-long teacher training and certification program, and we've shifted that online. So that was scheduled for the first week of May. It will still happen then, but it's going to happen online. So we're kind of scrambling to get very creative about how we can deliver what is usually a live retreat training in an online format and do a good job and deliver a really good learning experience for our students. So just many things like this are being canceled or moved online, and so this makes a lot of sense. And I'm just really gratified that I see so many organizations doing this. My colleagues down at the Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe are taking great precautions there, and they're moving the chaplaincy training, which is a 2-year program that has live components in the spring and in August each year, and they're moving the spring component online. And Kripalu Yoga Center has closed its doors for now. And many, many, many other centers. Southern Dharma has shut down live practice programs. And I know many other retreat centers around the country are doing the same thing. And it's all a very necessary precaution. And so I hope we can all cooperate and do our best to limit the impact. And I've been thinking today about the elderly and how meals are being delivered to the elderly. And not far from where I live with my fiancée Sophie in Hatfield, Massachusetts, we have the local food bank operation. And I had just registered to start volunteering there a few months ago and hadn't managed to get over through the orientation yet. But I'm wondering what's going on there. And I got an email from them saying that the food sorting operation wasn't happening. I think it was yesterday before. They're probably trying to figure out how to operate there. But I'm also wondering how meals are being delivered to the elderly and who's doing that. And, personally, I would love to volunteer to do that, and I don't know how. So I'm going to make some phone calls. But, how do we determine whether I'm safe to go take meals to the elderly? Who's contacted the virus without the testing? And we don't have the availability of testing yet to go quickly test all the volunteers to see if they're safe to go deliver the meals. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm going to look into it and see what I can find out. And hopefully there is a safe way to do that. And, I was reading an article. I'm going to post several really good articles that I found I've some of them I found online, and one was sent to me by a colleague. There's one that was sent by a colleague that I don't know. Maybe I can pull it up here quickly if I can. Um, but it seems to give the really the latest news and very detailed news um, about this pandemic, and I think I can pull it up here. Yeah. So I'll post this online so you can find it. But it's an article by Thomas Pueyo, Pueyo, and it was published on March 10th, so that was last Tuesday, and it gives a really detailed per country analysis and really explains how the growth rates happen, and this really makes the case for this whole notion of flattening the curve on the pandemic in various locations in various countries. And the title of the article is Coronavirus, Why You Must Act Now. And it's really addressed to politicians, community leaders, business leaders, and saying what you should do and when. And basically it's making the case for everything we can do to flatten the curve on what can be an accelerating spread of the virus and the resulting COVID-19 disease, and then the potential deaths that can come with that. So I'll post that article. It was in something called medium.com, so if you want to look for it, medium.com, an article by Thomas Pueyo that was published on March 10th. But again, I will post that. And I also posted an article earlier today that is an interesting article talking about how we've all we may not have had the personal experience, but we've certainly seen how with various natural disasters, hurricanes and earthquakes, and that often pull us together as human beings and see human beings at their very best taking care of each other. And according to this author who was writing this article, that often hasn't been the case with pandemics. In fact, historically, it hasn't been the case that out of fear, people start isolating and focusing on taking care of themselves and not reaching out, even when there are pleas to reach out. Of course, there was a wonderful, I think it was a Facebook post that went viral and that was reported on CNN a couple of days ago, where a young woman was heading to the grocery store and was hailed down by an elderly couple parked in their car and just cracking their window barely open. And they said they were afraid to go into this supermarket because of their fear of the virus and because of their elderly status and their greater vulnerability. And they passed a $100 bill and a shopping list out the crack of the window and asked this young woman if she would go shop for them, which she did, and she brought back the groceries. And so here was a wonderful person, a wonderful angel who acted to benefit this elderly couple. But according to this article, historically it's been the case that in many of these historic global pandemics, and the author cited 4 or 5 of them or more, where actually people were not reaching out, and out of fear people were not helping each other. And so that I think the title was something like Compassion Can Be the Victim of a Pandemic as well, something like that. At any rate, that's just a call to action, and that all of us to keep each other in our hearts and in appropriate ways, if we're the appropriate people in the appropriate situation, to reach out and help in any way we can. So, and each of us, of course, has to do that in our own way that makes sense and is appropriate. And this is not for any of us to feel guilty or feel bad about what we're doing or not doing. It's just remembering that when these things happen, we do need to support each other, and there will be vulnerable people who are going to need support as we go through this together. So, anyway, I would like to offer a couple of practices that we can use to really help ourselves self-regulate and to deal with anxiety and fear as it comes up. Many of you who will probably run into this video on my Facebook page, or may get sent somewhere or shared, but you, in all likelihood, you're already meditation practitioners, mindfulness practitioners. But if you're not, I'm going to just introduce a very sort of basic mindfulness technique. Then I'm going to introduce a breathing technique called straw breathing. And then finally, I'm going to introduce a contemplative practice that's grounded in mindfulness and mindfulness of body and breath. And I call it safe, resourced, and connected. And I adapted it with permission from my friend, Dr. Rick Hansen, whose work I highly recommend as well. So these are just some simple tools to help us be more resilient. And that's one of the most important things we can all do right now is focus on keeping ourselves healthy. And so that's physical resilience, mental resilience, emotional resilience, and spiritual resilience. And of course, there's all kinds of common sense things we can all do to take better care of ourselves. And most of us know what those things are. We don't always do them. In fact, sometimes we act, contrary to our own health and resilience. But this is the time to not do that. This is the time to practice really good self-care and take really good care of ourselves. And integrating mindfulness with almost any self-care activity is really helpful. And to begin with, our physical health is the most important here to begin with. And so, a good diet with whole foods and eating proper amounts, getting enough water, proper hydration. Most of us don't drink enough water. Breathing properly. Diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing. So if we are chest breathers, doing the work to retrain ourselves to become belly breathers, and just remembering that any time we're conscious of a breath, that's a good moment. So our breath is our best friend in that way. And all the other things we can do to take care of ourselves physically with exercise and getting enough rest and so forth, and limiting some of the things that are hard on the body, like caffeine and sugar and alcohol. And so all these are common sense things we can do to stay healthy. And by integrating mindfulness with any of these activities, like mindful eating, like practicing some mindful breathing before we go to sleep will help us sleep better. Integrating mindfulness into our exercise programs, all these things will help us become more resilient. And the more also taking a very embodied approach to our mindfulness practices, to really beginning to appreciate being grounded in the body, not only increases our resilience, but it anchors us in the body so that we're less likely to start spinning out with fearful thoughts and anxiety and so forth. Staying grounded in the body. Of course, the body can also be a place where we experience anxiety, so we each have to sort of titrate this in our own way. But I think these simple practices, just about anyone will find useful. And actually, I'm gonna begin with one, just very short, that if you do find yourself experiencing a moment of panic, going into that hyperventilation and really actually having a panic attack, one simple thing you can do is just simply breathe out forcefully through the mouth as long of an out breath as you can. So it's like this. So, of course, as you just noticed, what follows a long, long out breath like that? A long in breath. So what that does, it acts as a pattern interrupt. And you might have to do it 2 or 3 times to interrupt that panic cycle and the hyperventilation cycle. But if you do that, that will create a pattern interrupt and help you shift back to a normal breathing cycle and usually reground us in the body. Also, just grounding us physically, sitting down, sort of patting the body or tapping or squeezing the muscles and so forth. Anything we can do to ground ourselves, and using breathing to get out of that panic cycle. Okay? All right, so we're going to first just do some basic mindfulness of body, mindfulness of breathing. Then I'll go into the straw breathing. And then I'll go from there into the safe, resource, and connected exercise. And if you like, you can integrate the straw breathing with the safe, resource, and connected exercise. Okay? So finding somewhere you can sit. You can do this lying down. You can do it standing up. You can do it in any posture. Often the ideal posture is considered sitting down on a cushion or a chair. But the main thing is that you have a stable situation. So you can sort of actually take your seat, settle in. And then you may wish to lower your gaze so that you're less distracted by visual input, or you could close your eyes. And you can do it either way. I generally teach mindfulness practice with eyes open, gaze lowered, so that mindfulness more easily translates into our daily life where we don't keep our eyes closed, so that we're able to really integrate mindfulness into our daily activities. However, to begin with, you might want to close your eyes. It's easier to learn that way if you're new to it. And when we get into the safe, resource, and connected exercise, you may want to do that with your eyes closed to begin with, although you can also do that with your eyes open. And the straw breathing as well. It may be easier to learn it with the eyes closed, but you can certainly do it with the eyes open. I use it when I'm driving all the time. I do a lot of driving. I used to, not now, but normally I do a lot of driving to airports because I travel a lot with my work and my teaching. And I do a lot of straw breathing while I'm driving to the airport with my eyes wide open, obviously. Okay, so to begin with, either lowering the gaze or closing the eyes, whatever is comfortable for you. And just finding that posture that feels for you naturally uplifted, awake, same time relaxed and stable. And then as you're ready, beginning to bring your attention to the body. And by body, what I mean in this case are the actual tactile sensations that make up the experience we call body. Body itself is just a word, it's a concept, and we actually have kind of a conceptual body made up of our memories of body, our body images, our thoughts about body. So here the invitation is to penetrate beneath that conceptual level into the actual direct experience of body. Actually feeling the physicality of the body from head to toe. You might want to begin with all the sensations up in the head area because often that's where we're focused. We're very auditorily and visually oriented, and all the thinking we associate with being up here in the head. So just dropping from the head down through the neck and the shoulders, the upper back, the chest, down through the back, the torso, down through our hips, our seat, and down through our legs and all the way down to the soles of the feet. Or you could also just begin wherever your attention is most called. It might be with the contact points between your body and the chair or your feet and the ground. And then gradually extending your attention and awareness throughout the body. So these sensations could include the contact between your skin and your clothing, the weight of your clothing. Again, the contact between your body and the chair, the cushion, or your feet in the ground. The contact between exposed skin surface and the air temperature in the room or any movement of the air. And the passage of air across the nostrils and or parted lips with each in-breath and out-breath. And anytime you find your mind wandering, which is what the mind does, we just gently bring it back. And we just bring our attention back again and again to the body. And each time we come back, just dropping in deeper into the body with greater curiosity to really know our direct experience of being alive in this body, in this moment. If you find yourself completely lost in thought, which often happens, we get distracted and get caught up in some thought process, and then we're kind of down the rabbit hole of daydreaming or distractedness. But at some point we realize that, you could label that thinking, if you like. That's sometimes helpful. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just a little marker, silent. Label your voice in your mind, thinking. And then come back to the body, back to the breath. And coming back with a gentle intention to really stay with it, one breath after another. And then very importantly for developing resilience, I'd like to invite you to begin to explore the internal landscape of your body. We all have a capacity known as interoception. which is the body's capacity to feel itself from the inside out. So we experience the world around us through the five senses. That's called exteroception, or external perception. You may be able to hear some dogs barking in the distance as I'm recording this. Our neighbor's dog is out there sounding the alarm at whatever he seems to be noticing around him in the neighborhood. So with interoception, or internal sensation, we feel sensation within the body. And this is how we know when we're hungry, when we're thirsty, when we need to use the restroom, when we're tired. We generally only notice interoception, or what we sometimes call interoceptive awareness, when there's some kind of discomfort. So this is also how we experience a headache or muscle pain or indigestion and so forth. And the entire body is sensory all the way down to the bones, including the bones. There are neuronal cells connected to our nervous system, even in the marrow of the bones. So all of our musculature, the connective tissue, circulatory system, all our major organs, it's all sensory. So there's this vast landscape of internal sensation, tactile, physical sensation within the body from head to toe. And if we develop a more abiding access to that, that translates into being more embodied, feeling very present. Others experience us as more present, more available, and it increases our resilience and enhances our capacity for emotion regulation. So breath after breath, exploring all the different sensations we can notice and feel from head to toe, all across the surface of the skin, which is one very vast sensory organ, and within the body, the overall weight and mass of the muscles and bones, sensations of relaxation or tension, aliveness or numbness, the presence of any discomfort, any aches and pains or areas of stiffness. Or perhaps we can just sense the overall flow of nervous energy, or even that more subtle energy called prana or chi, as in pranayama or tai chi, or qigong, the subtle life force energy that actually animates our body, is the basis of life. And again, if the mind is wandering, gently bringing it back again and again to the body, and each time we come back, dropping in more deeply to the body with greater and greater curiosity to actually experience the full aliveness of our human embodied situation in the moment, breath after breath, moment to moment. Feeling the aliveness and the energy coursing through our body from head to toe. And feeling that entire flow of the breath, the passage of air across the nostrils and parted lips, the rib cage opening and closing, lungs filling with air and releasing the air, the diaphragm muscle properly driving the breath, contracting, creating a vacuum in the lungs which draws the air into the lungs, relaxing, which releases the air. And as the diaphragm muscle contracts, it pushes down. The organs have nowhere to go but out, so the belly goes up. And then on the out breath, the belly comes back down. which is why we call it belly breathing, but more properly it's diaphragmatic breathing. So that whole flow of sensation accompanying each breath is a wave-like motion as the breath flows in and out of the body, just allowing the breath to be as it is, just like waves lapping at the seashore. So this is basic mindfulness of body, mindfulness of breathing at a very deep level, practicing in a very deeply embodied way, activating this capacity we call interoceptive awareness. And whenever we notice that we've become distracted, we can simply acknowledge that. If we like, label it thinking, come back to the body, back to the breath. Okay, so that's the basic mindfulness of body, mindfulness of breathing practice. Now with that as a foundation, maybe adjust your posture for a moment, and then drop back into basic mindfulness of body, mindfulness of breathing. And then we're going to practice, I'm going to introduce straw breathing, which is an intentional form of breathing. With basic mindfulness practice, we just let the breath be as it is. That's very important. Here we are going to work with the breath in a specific way that we can use to engage the relaxation response, which is the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system. We have the autonomic nervous system with its two branches that operates all the complex processes in our body, and it has two branches, one that upregulates and one that downregulates. It's like the accelerator and the brake. So this straw breathing practice puts on the brake, kicks in the parasympathetic branch response or the relaxation response. And a very useful tool these days with the amount of uncertainty, anxiety, and fear that we're all experiencing in different ways. So the way we do this is we breathe in through the nose with the mouth closed, and then out through pursed lips as if through a straw. In through the nose, out through pursed lips as if through a straw, or as if whistling. You can actually use a straw. You can use a full straw or half a straw and breathe in through the nose and place the straw on your lips and blow out through the straw. But you can also just use it with pursed lips. And you can research this yourself, put straw breathing into your search engine, you can read all about it. So in through the nose, out through pursed lips. So just create that breathing pattern, get used to breathing in that way, in through the nose, out through pursed lips. And then we'll start counting the breaths. That will help you stay on track, but also we want to assure that the out breath is twice as long, or at least nearly twice as long as the in-breath. So on the in-breath, we might be breathing in a 4 count, something like this. In, 2, 3, 4. On the out-breath, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you get the idea. In through the nose, out through pursed lips. The out-breath twice as long as the in-breath. So maybe we're breathing in a 4 count, out an 8 count, or in a 5 count, out a 10 count. Keep it comfortable. There's no reason to be ambitious. So let's just do this for a minute. In through the nose, out through pursed lips. And if you continue that for just a few minutes, you'll begin to feel your whole nervous system start to calm down. you're directly engaging the parasympathetic branch or the relaxation response of our autonomic nervous system. It's helpful if you can do it with belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, but if you are a chest breather, just do your best. You can work to switch that later on. You can still do the straw breathing no matter how you're breathing. It will still help. And actually straw breathing over time is one way to retrain yourself to become a belly breather if we have become a chronic chest breather, which is a stress response. Okay, so now I want to introduce this exercise I call Safe, Resourced, and Connected. So, grounded still in mindfulness of body, mindfulness of breathing, so maybe adjust your posture a little bit. And then bring your attention back to the body, back to the breath. Anchoring our attention with the body, with the breath, anchors us in the present moment. The body and the breath are happening right now. So as we practice basic mindfulness of body, mindfulness of breathing, I'm going to invite you to contemplate three things, one after the other. In other words, intentionally think about three things. Actually, I'm going to be asking you to repeat some statements. And one builds on the other. And we'll just do each for a minute or so. So the first one is bringing to mind that right here, right now, I'm safe. Right here, right now, I'm safe. Now, if you're at home, you may feel completely safe or perfectly safe. And you may wonder, well, why do I need to say that? Well, because of something called the negativity bias, whereby our brain is set up to pay most attention to threat. Our long-term memory is full of negativity and threat, and our brain is predisposed to fear. And so whether we're aware of it or not, we're walking around all day in modern life with our brain going, I'm going to die, or I might die, at whatever level. Very subtle levels, not so subtle levels. And of course, with what's happening now with this global pandemic, all our threat systems are on guard. So right here, right now, I'm safe, at least relatively safe. Right here, right now, I'm safe. Just repeating a phrase like that until you actually begin to feel that quality of physical, emotional safety in your body, heart, mind, throughout your nervous system. Right here, right now, I'm safe. Now, for some of us, that could bring up memories of times when we didn't feel safe, and that's fine. Just let that come and go. We're not avoiding that. We're not denying that. You can just allow that to be there and just bring your attention back to yes, and right here, right now, actually, I am, at least in this moment, relatively safe. At least in this moment, I'm safe. Just breathing that quality of safety into your brain and nervous system. And here we're speaking to what's known as the reptilian brain, which is all about survival. And it's what takes over when there's some kind of threat with the fight or flight response. So we're speaking to that part of our brain, letting it relax a little bit. Right here, right now, I'm safe. Right here, right now, I'm safe. Just keep repeating that phrase until you actually begin to feel a quality of safety. Right here, right now, I'm safe. And then the second one, building on that, is right here, right now, I'm resourced. I'm resourced. In other words, my basic needs are met. Food, warmth, shelter, facilities, what have you. My basic needs are met. Right here, right now, I'm resourced. So just keep repeating that until you actually begin to feel that quality in your nervous system. This has to do with our midbrain, which is about approaching the sources of having our needs met. It's when we're not in survival avoidance, we're actually willing to approach. So we're speaking to that part of our brain. Right here, right now, I'm resourced. My basic needs are met, I'm resourced. And again, this could bring up memories of times when we didn't feel that way. And again, we can just allow that to come and go and bring our mind back to yes, and right here, right now, I am resourced. I am resourced. So breathing that quality of feeling resourced into our entire brain and nervous system and body, all the way down to the marrow of the bones. Right here, right now, I'm resourced. Safe and resourced. Right here, right now, at least in this moment, I'm safe and I'm resourced. Then the third and final contemplation, and one that's really important now that we're practicing social distancing and in some cases self-quarantine and so forth. Right here, right now, I'm connected. Right here, right now, I'm connected. I have people in my life. I'm connected to other human beings. So bring into your mind's eye, you may want to do this with your eyes closed, and bring into your mind's eye your close loved ones, your close friends, people that have your back, you have their back. And really feel that quality of being connected. Right here, right now, I'm connected. Right here, right now, I'm connected. Just breathing that into our entire brain, nervous system, body, all the way down to the bones. Right here, right now, I'm connected. And of course, our relational field has conflicts and all kinds of issues. It's never perfect, but we are connected. We do have people in our life. So that's the opposite of feeling isolated or alienated. So just keep repeating a phrase like that. Right here, right now, I'm connected. And really feeling that and visualizing your close friends and loved ones in your mind's eye so you feel that quality of connection. Right here, right now, I'm connected. Right here, right now, I'm connected. Safe, resourced, and connected. Safe, resourced, and connected. Right here, right now, at least in this moment, I'm safe, I'm resourced, and I'm connected. So let's finish the exercise off now with 3 long, deep breaths. And we'll breathe in through the nose, then out through pursed lips, with each one of these. So first of all, right here, right now, I'm safe. Right here, right now, I'm resourced. And right here, right now, I'm connected. Safe, resourced, and connected. So doing that for as long as you would like, or as long as you have time to do. And this is something you can do in the midst of your regular meditation practice, if you have one, or you can do it anytime, anywhere, any time of day. And in doing so, we'll be reprogramming our brain to be less defaulting to spinning things to the negative or to the fearful. This is overriding what we call the negativity bias and getting more positive experiences into our long-term memory. We know from current neuroscience that positive experiences don't even go into long-term memory unless we hold them in short-term memory, the science says, for 12 to 20 seconds. Whereas any kind of negative experiences, uncomfortable or threatening experiences, go right into long-term memory with great vividness, detail, and clarity. That's just the way we're set up to work, because what's job one for any species? Survival, obviously. So we need to focus on the positive. Do what Dr. Rick Hansen calls savoring the good, savoring the positive. Actually, our brain, I like the way Dr. Hansen says it. He says our brain is set up to act like Velcro for negativity and like Teflon for positivity. But we can consciously override that by doing something like safe, resourced, and connected, doing gratitude lists, doing other ways to program some positive experience into our brain, not in a Pollyannish way, but in a realistic way, so it balances out our brain so we're not defaulting so quickly to fear and anxiety. Safe, resourced, and connected. Okay, so I hope you find these simple tools useful. Basic mindfulness of body and breathing, which anchors us in nowness and presence and really gives us access to our best capacities for dealing with the challenges of modern life, let alone this global pandemic we're experiencing right now. And then straw breathing, which anytime we find ourselves getting too upregulated, we can just bring ourselves right back down. And then the safe, resource, and connected, which I think you'll find will help really build a kind of background anchor of feeling a deep sense of okayness. If you just do it a few times a day with any kind of regularity, you'll find it really making a shift for you. So we're all in this together. Let's do our best to flatten out that curve. And if you found this video useful, please share it widely with whoever you think might find it useful. So stay healthy, stay safe.